another thing I wanted to ask you about, and that is, creative ways to present, not just kind of to present anything beneficial, right? Knowledge, Islamic knowledge, beneficial knowledge in any kind of sphere. So one of the things that, in like your course, for example, that story narrative style is very interesting. I think we need more and more of these things, especially in the kind of media domain, and like film and the arts and poetry and that kind of stuff.
So I read a very interesting book recently, last week actually, called Story Brand. Okay, now people who are in film and my good friend Bilal Khan, I'm sure he knows all of this stuff. Anyway, but for me, someone not coming necessarily from that branding world and that storytelling world, this is a guy who's written like not thousands, but he's written a lot of scripts, and he talks about the hero's journey. Are you familiar with the hero's journey? Like there are 7 steps that every hero takes, or this is like the formula for a hit movie. And you have the hero, you have the character, and then you have the problem. Of course, everybody's got to have a problem. Otherwise, if you don't have a problem, then you have no story. If you simply it's
the Mufasa dying.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have right. You have to have Simba, and then you have to have the problem. Mufasa gets killed, and he gets kicked out.
Spoiler alert.
And then number 3 is you have to have the hero can't turn into the hero without having a guide. Every movie has to have a guide. Every story has to have a guide, and the guide is the person outside of the hero. Because if the hero didn't need a guide, then he wouldn't have gotten into trouble in the first place, right? So he needs Timon and Pumbaa, or he needs Nala, or he needs Rafiki. Not Rafiki. And he has Rafiki. And then he basically develops into who he is, right? And there's more to it. But the point is that there. Oh, sorry, I forgot. There's an
antagonist.
There has to be a villain, right? The worse the villain, the more important the story, right? You have to have a Voldemort, or you have to have a Scar, or you have to have whoever it is. And so when I was thinking about this, I was thinking that even in our presentations, we don't really do any of these types of things, right? And if you do, then it's kind of just you happen to fall into you don't really follow these types of things. Yeah, it's by accident. And I thought this would be something really interesting, that even when we're talking about our courses, or so I have another course called The Venom in the Serum, which is a study of sin. And the entire course is about Dhunub al-Ma'asi. It's based on Ibn al-Qayyim's book Ad-Da' wa-Dawa, The Illness and the Cure. But I was thinking to myself, man, like this course could have been so much more creative. Like you could have made the enemy a dhunub, or you could have made it your nafs. Like this is the person and you're the hero. And I think a lot of times also is that, unfortunately, even in our presentations, we try to make ourselves the hero, right? And so the sheikh is the hero, or the teacher is the hero, or whoever. And even if it's just you teaching a bunch of MSA kids or university kids, you're the one who everybody else has to be rotating around, as opposed to you being in a place of being the guide, because everybody is interested in being the hero themselves. Anyway, so that was a quick tangent for you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
I think there's so much room for creativity in our communities, in our spaces. I think it requires a couple of things. Number one, it requires
innovation.
Creativity. Yeah. Like, how did you know I was going to say that? It does. Like, it requires innovation, because sometimes Muslim. Okay, now you're getting me into another. We are, at least in the United States, when you talk about your average Muslims, you're not talking about culture creators. You're talking about culture consumers, and I talk about this a lot as well. A culture creator is somebody who they are the ones who create new genres. They create new. Like, I'll give you a really quick example. How long have we been debating about music being halal versus haram? How long has that been happening? It's been happening
almost as long
forever.
as the Asma wa Sifat debate.
Even longer. And so as Muslims are banging their heads, the only way that I can be an artist is if I make music and blah, 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 blah. I want you to Google and look up a cappella on YouTube.
Yeah.
And just look at how crazy that community is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You're talking
we
about
steal their stuff all the time for
your wedding.
background for the
right?
videos and
these guys, right? And they're not even Muslim.
Yeah,
they're not even.
I always say, we need to embrace these. You call them restrictions if you want, but that's what pushes and drives creativity and innovation. The good kind.
The Muslims absorbed so much from the Greek world, right? The Greeks and you had Beit al-Hikmah, the translation of all of these texts and Greek philosophy and all of that. The Muslims didn't look at them and say, "Oh, well, their form of artistry is sculpting. They're sculpting statues, so we must sculpt statues. That is the only way. They make images, and that is the only way that we can profess art." And so they looked and they said, "Okay, well, that's haram for us, right? It is." So what we're going to do is we're going to take this calligraphy thing and we are going to blow everybody out of the water with calligraphy and with architecture and with, right? And in the US, probably the most creative community is the African American community.
Yeah.
Right? And so they have, they created jazz. And then they created rock and roll. Maybe they created rock and roll first and jazz first. I'm not sure. And then hip hop. And then when hip hop, each time, they create it and then somebody else comes and takes it over. And by someone else, I mean white people. And then they go to something else, right? And so hip hop then is becoming gentrified. And okay. I was watching recently and I was sharing this in the other course, the Venom and the Serum. I was sharing to them. I said, look, have you seen these rap battles that happen? Literally stadiums or theaters, not stadiums, but theaters. Hundreds and hundreds of people, no music involved. No music at all. It's just people going back and forth. Now, it's still haram because of all of the vulgarity and the insulting, okay? But my point is they were able to create a new culture, a new project, a new artistry that is independent of the thing that we have said has been limiting our artistry. Unscripted.